Hi there, it's me, I'm back. Thanks for tuning back into my channel. If you're a long-time subscriber and if you're new here, welcome. This is my channel where I like to discuss anime, video games, as well as manga, kind of just my personal interests if you take it. And so yeah, pretty much from here, the video that I wanted to make today was just about a Netflix original anime that I've been watching. So I've had a lot of time on my hands these past few months, and so I just decided to get into some new things that I normally wouldn't get into, but I actually have to give Netflix props. They've been doing a really good job with their anime producing lately, and so these are the animes in this video that I wanted to talk about that I recommend for you guys. And if you like them, definitely give me a shout and say that you enjoyed them. And if you didn't, still let me know, because obviously everyone's opinions are subjective, and so what I enjoy may not be what you enjoy, but I would still love to hear your feedback. And at the end of this video, if you want to stick around, I have a little segment called On the Reel. And what I'll be going over in that segment is pretty much a big update on my life for this past year, because it has been a while that I've been here, and you guys deserve to hear about the changes that I've gone through, that I've made, and that I'm happy to share with you guys. So yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. The first anime on my list that's coming in at number 3 is called My Happy Marriage. So this premise of the anime is that it's about a servant girl who is born into a semi-wealthy family. Her original mother passed away, and so she is raised by the stepmother who has her own child with the father, and they disregard her, they're very mean to her, and she's treated as though she's nothing in this family. So it's got a love triangle in there, and I don't want to spoil too much, but basically the premise is that she is wedded off into another family where she finally escapes the hell of a home she's come from. This story is really breathtaking. I think that the first episode was captivating. When I first put it on, it was actually background noise for me because I was studying for an exam and I just needed something on in the background that was going to take my mind off of that. And I ended up glancing up at the screen several times, and each time that I did, I got lost in the fact that I was actually enjoying what I was seeing. The characters themselves are all very well written. It's kind of got like a cliche stepsister in there. She's mean, she's intolerable, and she's obviously jealous. But I do like her in the end because I feel like there's going to be some sort of redemption arc for her in the end to explain why she's the way that she is. And then the older sister, which is the main character, she is regarded as a servant, and they're treating her like a maid. It kind of takes you a minute to realize that that is their daughter and not an actual servant. But she's so sweet. She's such a sincere, pure soul, and there's something about her that when she's on the screen, it really does you gravitate towards her. Like, she's so nice, and she's real timid, she's shy, and she would almost remind me of Toru Honda from Fruits Baskets, if only she were more outgoing. But that aside, she's a very likable character, and I really hate how she was raised, and of course the story is really good about having you be sympathetic towards her. But when she's finally removed from that household, you can't help but be happy for her, because you're just hopefully expecting that this is much better than what she comes from. And so yeah, I recommend this anime mostly because it's just a breath of fresh air. It's one that you can sit down and you actually can enjoy it from beginning to end. I personally loved everything about the first episode. It's one that really pulled me in the moment that I saw it. And the good news about this one is that I started watching the anime when it already had 2 episodes out. So I was able to watch the first and second episode back to back. That's also the downside of it though, is that Netflix is doing this horrific, unrecommendable decision to release a lot of content episode by episode. And I thought it was bad when they'd release like half a season of something and then they'd release the other half later on, but now they're doing it with episodes. Vinland Saga is at that level, and there's like a few other animes that are there as well. But yeah, My Happy Marriage is a part of that lineup where they're releasing episodes weekly. So yeah, welcome to early 2000s watching Toonami again, where we have to wait a week before an episode comes out. But that aside, it actually is worth the wait. I enjoy every episode that I've seen, and it also makes it seem as though they're putting a lot of effort into this. They're not just releasing things to release it. It actually feels like there's a genuine, pure story behind this, and the characters and the way that they are, it keeps you wanting to come back for more. So although I watched this anime as background noise in the beginning, I'm actually watching it for entertainment going forward. So episode 2 I enjoyed without having any distractions for myself, and that's the reason why it's on this list. I genuinely think that you guys would like it. Now, if you're not someone who's into the romance anime, then I don't recommend this anime for you, and that's just because it is a romance anime. You know, it's one that's going to pull at your heartstrings, and so I wouldn't recommend it if it's not something that you're genuinely going to be into. But now, if you're someone who doesn't mind romance animes and you just kind of want something to watch, then yeah, this is one that I recommend for you. And of course, if you don't like it, still keep me informed because I love hearing different perspectives on things anyway. Obviously, every opinion is subjective, so me liking it doesn't mean you're supposed to or that you're going to. But if you don't, I would like to hear why, because for the most part, it's just going to be a nice conversation overall, and you and I both could learn something from that. And so going forward, yeah, guys, keep me updated. I would love to hear what your opinions are on any of the anime recommendations that I give to you, because otherwise I wouldn't have a channel. And also, I love having discussions, and so please definitely let me know. The second recommendation that's coming in at number 2 on my list is going to be Blood of Zeus. So if anybody knows me, I love mythical mythology. And I love Greek mythology as well as Roman mythology. Those are like one of my top things. Back when I was in middle school, I had to write an entire paper on Persephone as well as Narcissus. And so I typically don't like Narcissus, but his story was vain, and it was my first understanding of the mythology world itself. And so, you know, that was also where I got introduced to Artemis as well as Apollo, Ares, Hermes. So after that, I was like, you know, the mythology world was so interesting, and just hearing about the whole string of the gods and their obsessions with the humans, it was just interesting. And so the Blood of Zeus, the premise of it is about Zeus was involved with a mortal woman, and she ends up getting impregnated, and she gives birth to twin sons. One of the two is actually the son of Zeus. So the story follows the older son, which is Haran, and he is in a village that does not like him and his mother. They're both outcasted, but it's enshrouded in clouds because the only reason why they're being raised there is because Zeus wants to hide them from Hera, and Hera is the wife of Zeus. Now, disclaimer, I personally do not like Zeus. He is one of my most unfavorable gods, and it's because I hate that he's involved with anyone and everyone. Honestly, he is a walking skis, but at the most part, he's also a very interesting god because he's involved in so many of the Greek mythology stories. There's not many gods that aren't already tied to Zeus in some kind of way. But I really also hate how dirty he does Hera. I mean, Homegirl's been through a whole lot. Like, she's put up with so much. I mean, I honestly couldn't see her going through more than what she did in regards to Hephaestus. And so if you guys don't know the story about Hephaestus, then please read up on it. It's pretty tragic, and the fact that like no one really talks about it that much, it's a tragedy in its own. It's just not my most favorited god, and it sucks that if he didn't exist, there wouldn't be as many gods and goddesses that there are, as well as there wouldn't be so many spin-off stories about each of them because of Zeus. So with that being the case, that's the reason why we have the Blood of Zeus. As far as Haran being the main character, I do think he's an interesting character. He's likable for the most part, but he's also boring. I honestly kind of, for a while, thought he was going to be Hercules. For some reason, I just thought that that fit him so much better. Hercules' story is so much more interesting. Like, I like that he was half god and half human, but Hercules, something about him was much more entertaining than Haran. But for the most part, like I said, everyone else is pretty interesting. They also have Hades in the Blood of Zeus. I do like Hades. He's a really interesting character. His backstory in this one is very different compared to where he actually comes from. But for the most part, he is still an interesting person throughout this anime. And another reason why I like mythology stories is because each take is different. Like, there is a story that I'm reading on this app called Webtoon, and it's called Lore Olympus. So Persephone and Hades are an item in that story, but in the real Greek mythology, Persephone's and Hades are related. And so I like that in this story, that is obviously not the case. Blood of Zeus, that is obviously not the case. And so that's why the mythology stories are so interesting to me, because every depiction is original. Like, you're not going to get the same story out of Blood of Zeus that you would get out of Lore of Olympus. And so that's just something that I like about those kinds of stories, is that everyone has their own depiction of it, and each of them is always interesting. And so, yeah, I do recommend Blood of Zeus, and it's just because I like mythology, but obviously if that's not something you're into, then I don't recommend this. It's not exactly that heavy on it because, like I said, it doesn't focus on the original primary story with Zeus or any of the other gods. It's obviously derived from that. And so, but if you're certainly just not interested in Zeus or the gods or any of that kind of stuff, then this isn't an anime I recommend for you. Although if you want to just watch something for entertainment, you could still do that. There's not much fighting in this, unlike the Ragnarok one. That one has much more fighting if that's what you're into. Zeus is also in that story as well, and he's depicted much different. And so that's why I say that like each depiction is so unique because it's never going to be the same as something else. And the Ragnarok story is actually an original Netflix as well. And so either way, check both of them out, see what your comparisons to them are. But I like Blood of Zeus over the Ragnarok story. And so that's just my recommendation. Of course, like I said, let me know what you guys think about it. You might not have liked it as much as I did, but I would still like to hear your opinions or tell me why I'm wrong and why you didn't like it as much. So it would still be interesting to hear from you. The third recommendation is one that's coming in at number 1, actually, and it's because I really, really, really enjoyed this one. And so it's called Skull Island. A big thing about me is that I'm super big, a super geek over adventure things. I love adventure shows, adventure stories. Like, it's just not something that people could do the same way each time. Skull Island's premise is about a family that goes on a venture on a ship that gets destroyed. They meet a girl who's mysterious, and then they land on a mysterious island with mysterious things. And that is the best premise I can give to you without spoiling anything. I liked all of the characters. I primarily like the guy who sounds exactly like from the man from Dragon Prince, as well as from Avatar, the Airbender. So I really like that voice actor. He's in this one too. I don't want to tell you which one he is because then you're gonna focus on that the whole time. Just watch the show and then you'll figure out very quickly which one he is. The characters are so interesting. There's like a lot of comedic relief in this, but they do it so well. And then the drama and the mystery is built up so well. I was entertained the whole time from beginning to end. I finished that anime within 2 days. So that is one that I highly recommend. That's why it's number 1 on my list. And I hope that Netflix gets the memo to make more things like that. Like, it just made my heart happy to watch something that took me back to my childhood. It felt really nostalgic to sit there and see something that just was truly entertaining. The characters were funny, the story was gripping, and they actually had moments in there where I was genuinely cracking up. Like, there's a moment where they're in the forest. I won't spoil too much, but they're in the forest and they're running from this dog. And the dog is a character on his own, but there's these 2 guys who are chasing the main characters, and they're in the swamp and they're asking these interrogation questions, and one of the main characters asked him, well, who are you? And he's like, who am I? Like, it was such a funny, genuine reaction of like, why are you asking us the questions? We're supposed to be asking y'all the questions. Like, don't sit there and interrogate me. I'm the interrogator. So it was like a genuine funny like scene to me, and I was like, this is the reason why I like this show. This is the reason why they don't take themselves too serious. It's actually entertaining. It does everything it does correctly and well. And so that's why I highly recommend this one. And you guys can definitely let me know what you think in the comments. For you, I feel like most people's issue with this anime is that it's going to feel like it's too childish. Personally, I like those kinds of things because it brings me back to childhood. It just makes me happy. It just brings a sense of joy and relief. I definitely recommend this one, and you guys can let me know in the comments what you think. I would give this one, if anything, a 5 out of 5. My first recommendation, I would have given that one a 4 out of 5, only because it's episodic and it's still building up. My second recommendation, I would also give that one a 4 out of 5, and that's still just because there was something slightly lacking about the characters, but at the same time, it was still really good. And so that's just kind of what I wanted you guys to be aware of. It was really fun having this list with y'all. I haven't watched anime in a really long time, and it was mostly because I was kind of going through a whole lot last year, so anime fell off for me, and now that I've picked it back up, I realized that it's been a huge saving grace for what I've been going through. So yeah, I really appreciate you guys tuning into this, and we're gonna go ahead and get into the on the reels section. That way you guys can go on with your day and not have to sit up and look at me anymore. Welcome to the other section called On the Real. This is the part of the segment where in my videos I just want to kind of go over some things that I've been going through in my life, and it's not going to be in every video. This is definitely for those times where I have to give you guys major updates on things, or I just kind of want to talk about something that's just out there and on my mind. And so I really appreciate you for tuning in or getting this far because it means a whole lot to me. One of the first things I wanted to talk about is my job situation. So last year I was laid off from a company that I was really enjoying the work for. It kind of made me fluctuate in my mental stability at times, but at the end of the day, I really did like what I was doing. And I was working from home. I had a pretty easygoing schedule and I was able to do what I wanted for the most part. And when I moved into this apartment, that was a job that I started with. I was so happy. It felt like a big girl job. You know, I felt like I was really gonna be there for a while. And then my entire department got laid off, and it really threw me for a loop because it was a week after my birthday and I had never been laid off before. So it just kind of felt like a huge blow to my ego, and I didn't know what to do, but I then was able to get back on my feet because I found a following job in October. And the thing about it is that I will never again take anything when I'm desperate. That's in regards to relationships, that's in regards to jobs, that's in regards to anything. And so I took this job out of desperation. It was actually working back in the veterinary world, and I used to be a veterinary technician. That was my profession for at that time 9 years, and it was just something I no longer wanted to do. I had grown out of it, I was no longer passionate about it, but after losing my job, I realized that it was kind of the only thing I knew how to do, and I knew that I could go back to it, and it was going to be something I knew that I could do. That company was very unprofessional. I don't want to say too much or throw them under the bus, but at the most part, I could tell from the very beginning that they had some sort of issue with me. And when I started there, I got along with everyone. I'm really good at what I do. I was a client service representative. I build very good rapport with clients. I catch on to things easily. I'm just good at what I do. And so I enjoy it too. That was the thing. I love doing intake information. For some reason, was the only one that they had so many issues with. And I'm a very easygoing person. It kind of goes back in line with the fact that so I am autistic. And that's not something I tell very many people, definitely not my jobs and my friends. Only 2 people know about that. But we're gonna be vulnerable here, and so I just wanna let you guys be aware I am autistic. So one of the things about me is that I'm really bad at reading emotions. I'm really bad at reading facial expressions. I'm very stoic, I'm very matter of fact. And for the most part, I don't think companies take well to that I don't show my emotions the way that they expect me to, at least. And I don't react to things the way that they expect me to. So they were coming to me telling me all this stuff, and then I was able to take it in stride. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I can fix that. And it seemed to throw them off. It seemed to really upset them that I was able to just turn around and fix whatever they asked me to do. I didn't make a fuss about it. I didn't complain about it. I just said, okay, and I walked away. So then that just made them start hassling more about stuff. And like I said, I'm very easygoing. So I don't like making a fuss. I would just take it in stride. And over time, I didn't even realize that company was draining me. It was literally putting me back in a space that I thought I had come out of, I don't like telling people that I went through serious depression last year. I actually had to check myself into a psychiatry hospital because I was literally losing my mind. I was in such a turmoil of emotions that my depression had almost taken me over the deep end. So anyway, I had pulled myself out of that all on my own. This job was sending me back to a place that I was all too familiar with, and I didn't even realize it. I had gotten to a point where I was ignoring my feelings. I was ignoring that I was feeling as low and as crappy as I was. And in hindsight, I was depressed and I didn't know. So I started having panic attacks again. Back in 2020 and 2021, I suffered severely with panic attacks. I was literally on medication so that I wouldn't have them. And I was I didn't even associate it to the fact that I was stressed and just enraged with my job. I kept chalking it up to stop showing your emotions. People don't need to see what you really think. People don't need to see you blow your cap. I thought that was the most professional thing to do, was to keep a lid on my emotions. I didn't want these people at my job to assume that I was going to be an angry black woman, So I kept my cool. And in the end, that just bit me in the ass. And so I realized that I can't keep working for that company. And so I made the final decision that on Monday, this past Monday, to quit. And so I left, and it was kind of the best thing that ever happened to me because ever since then, I obviously had to apply for more jobs. I can't be unemployed. I have an apartment to pay for. And the next job I got was actually one that I realized is my calling. In the end, I decided to choose myself. And that was the very first time I'd ever thought that. Like, I realized that if I kept staying at this job, these panic attacks were going to continue. I didn't want to think of it as that job being the reason. And so I made the decision to leave. I think that this is the first time that I'm starting to come to myself. I'm starting to come into my own. I'm starting to make decisions that are best for me and that I don't care what anybody else thinks about it. With that being the case, I also decided to go and apply for college. This time I was like, you know what? I'm also tired of jumping around. Like, I had obviously my technician skills being a vet tech, but I don't want to continue that career field. So, and after that situation, I decided I don't want to go back to it anymore anyway. And I made the decision to go back to school to be an MRI technician. And so that was something that I personally have always had an interest in. And it's also still in the medical healthcare field, and that's still something that I enjoy. Be a forensic examiner as well as a toxicologist. Like, those used to be real interests of mine, but the schooling for them was going to take too long. And I told her, I said, look, I know that you say to everybody that they ain't got nothing but time, but personally, I don't have that luxury anymore. I'm 26 going on 27. I just need something that's a little quicker. And so that's when we discussed the radiology program, which was only going to take 2 years as opposed to 8. And so I do think 2 years from now, I can see myself in a better position than where I'm at currently. And I know that I definitely don't want to be back in situations where I lose my jobs unexpectedly, as well as just floundering again. You know, I want something more permanent, and that's why I decided to take on that option. Also, right before I left that job, something that happened last year that I don't talk about much and that I suppressed my feelings about was that I lost my dog right after I got that job. It was like 2 weeks after. And it was devastating. And I pretended like it didn't bother me, but it crushed me. It broke my entire heart. And, you know, I had had that dog for years. He was my very best friend. And he had helped me go through so much of my depression last year. You know, I had him and he was here. He kind of kept me on this focus of when I woke up, I had something to do. I had someone to take care of other than myself. And so it just felt like he was here for a reason. But when I got that job, I wasn't sure that I could give him the care that he needed, because like I had him in my home for over a year because I was working from home, so the care for him was much easier. And you guys can kind of hear it in the background. You probably saw him earlier in the videos, but 2 weeks before I lost, sorry, 2 weeks before I decided to quit this job, stop! I was going to work actually, and what happened is that I almost hit this dog. And the ironic part about it is that the night before I had this massive headache, like a headache so severe I had to go to the hospital. And so when I was released, I was diagnosed with trigeminal neuralgia, which is basically, it's a culmination of a migraine times 3. The entire left side of my face felt numb, it was burning, and I couldn't move it for like a straight 10 minutes, it felt like. So when I checked into the emergency hospital, I thought I was having a stroke. You know, my worst fear, because I live alone, and you know, they obviously were able to conduce that I was not having a stroke, and they released me a couple hours later and everything was okay. And the next morning I just happened to tell my manager that I was gonna have to be running like a delayed start. Instead of starting at 8, I was gonna start at 10. And because I just needed time to get the medication and take that medication and just make sure I wasn't gonna have severe side effects from it. And on my way to work, ironically, I had to go the opposite direction because there was a truck that was blocking me in. So the direction I would have normally gone, I couldn't go. So I had to go all the way around the backside of my apartments, and I found this cute little dog. Now, at first, obviously, I wasn't going to keep him. I was like, is someone around? He had no collar, no leash. It didn't even look like anybody was like outside looking for him. And that was on July the 7th. And I was like, you know, maybe it's because 4th of July was recently. Maybe that's the reason why this dog is just loose. So I told my apartments, like the moment I found him. And I asked if anyone had said that they lost their dog, and she said no. And I called the apartments behind me to ask them if they reported any of their residents saying that they lost their dog, and they said no. I called every veterinary hospital around this area to see if anyone has reported that their dog is missing, and if someone happens to bring it to them that it's theirs. None of them said anything. They said, no, no one is called. So in my eyes, I was like, okay, well, let me go check to see if you have a microchip. Didn't have a microchip. And I kept him, posted his picture. Nobody got in touch with me that he belonged to them, but I did get a lot of inquiries about people wanting to keep him. And I was like, no, if anything, I'm going to make sure he finds his family. And then obviously a week passed and no one reached out to me about them saying that he was from anywhere. I posted him on like 5 different websites. Nobody at all recognized this dog. And so that's why I was like, something, I think God was trying to tell me that I should keep you. So something about me is that I'm very spiritual. I've always been, in the religious factor. And if that sits wrong with you, I'm very sorry, but I just want to be honest with you guys. I feel like this dog found me for a reason, because a week later, obviously on Monday, I quit my job because everything just built up. Like everything was overwhelming and I couldn't take it anymore. And I got this dog, right before that happened. And same with when I lost my dog, right after I got that job. It just kind of felt like God was telling me, I'm putting this dog in your life, even though you're not ready for it. You weren't looking for a companion, because I wasn't. I personally was thinking about all the financial issues that I was going on myself and having to keep afloat. And then all of a sudden this dog comes into my life and now I have something else to take care of again. It just felt like, oh my gosh, this is like not what I was expecting. But I think that honestly God knew. And it was because of him that I was able to get out of bed in the mornings. Like after everything happened, like this dog is what kept me going. And so I want to show you guys what he looks like, because he's been kind of in and out of the frame. Come here. So this is him. He actually doesn't have a name yet. And it's primarily because I don't know what I want to call him. Every pet that I've had before has like come with a name, and it's just easy to just keep using that. I don't know what he looks like to me, but he's a Shih Tzu. He's like a 2 or 3 year old. He's not a puppy. He acts like one, and ironically, he reminds me so much of my old dog. And that's why I felt like this was like a calling, that it was like pure fate that he was what I meet, like he found me, not I found you. And so, this is my old dog. I know it's kind of probably hard to see, but yeah, that's my old dog Cheech. And like I said, I lost him last year, November the 6th. And it was hard for me, but I didn't want anyone to know that, I was like, I just wanted to suppress my feelings. And then July 7th, I find this guy. And like I said, life has a funny way of working out sometimes. The other updates is just kind of like my plans in the future. I do plan to still keep making videos. These are fun for me. Sometimes I just get awkward though, because I don't know what to say all the time, and I get weird about how I want to word things, but I genuinely do like making these videos. I genuinely think that anime has like been a huge part of my life. And honestly, in regards to my depression sort of lifting much sooner than I expected, is because I just decided to give myself permission to be okay again. Like I just felt like I didn't deserve anything. It was hard for me to sit up and be like, wow, I deserve to just have a rest day. I deserve to just enjoy myself. I deserve to just spoil myself. Like a big part of my life was that I just felt like after everything happened last year, even in regards to losing my relationship and then being in a car crash and my grandfather dying, like there's a lot of things that happened. I just didn't feel like I deserved anything. It was hard for me to be happy with what I had. I wanted to be grateful, but I didn't believe in anything that I thought I was grateful for. And this year really taught me how to not only be humble, but really what the definition of grateful is. I have really great friends who, after the situation happened with my job, I was very vulnerable with them. And that's not something that I've ever been comfortable to do in the past. That's actually the reason why my relationship failed, is because it was hard for me to be vulnerable. It was hard for me to show like my weakness to people. And it was hard for me to let people in and see that I was struggling or that I was hurting. And after losing my job or leaving, I told them, and they were all understanding. They were loving, and I was able to just be honest to them that it was devastating. And so last year I just felt like I was engulfed in love, and I didn't think until this year that I deserved that, you know? And still to this day, they're very loving people, and I'm very grateful for them. And I don't want to cry, but I do think that everything happens for a reason. I think that me leaving that job, I think God honestly told me that that's what he wanted. And then me finding this dog was because he knew that this dog was going to keep me going. Like, the reason why I don't want to be unemployed for too long is because I have to feed him. I have to buy his food, and I now have to take care of him in regards to getting him groomed and haircuts and taking a bath. Like, it's just going to have to be a huge list of things that I have to do now. And that's why I think that all of it happened for a reason, and something I'm proud of. I made it through losing my job last year. I made it through being in a car crash. I made it through racial discrimination at 2 jobs, and I'm still here. And it's a huge reason, huge thanks to my friends, this dog, as well as anime. Like, anime has saved my life. And some of the future videos I want to make is in regards to these 2 games that I was playing on my Nintendo Switch, which is Pokemon, as well as Legend of Zelda. Oh, and also Night in the Woods. That's like an indie game. I don't know why or who recommended that one to me. I think I just happened to come across it. I love indie games. Undertale is my favorite all-time indie game ever. But yeah, Night in the Woods is pretty cool. But Legend of Zelda and Pokemon have been my obsessions since like probably March of this year. And actually, no, they've been my obsession since last year, like December. And my friend, she actually showed me Pokemon, and she got me really into Pokemon Brilliant Diamond, and it's just been super cool. And then my ex is actually the one who suggested Legend of Zelda to me. And I didn't think I was gonna like the Zelda games, but then I went and stayed at a friend's house in Dallas, and she and her friends were playing it, and I said, I gotta get this game. So it's been a really cool obsession. But yeah, those things have carried me through so far. And I want to just say to you guys that I'm glad to still be here. You know, my heart was broken, my dreams felt like they had been crushed, and my ego was bruised, but here I am and still I stand. So I thank you guys for being on this journey with me. Like I said, I do plan to still be here and make more content. I'm sorry about there being a lack of that within the last year. I just was going through hell, and I didn't know when I was going to be back to talk about it, but I am glad now to be here, and so I plan to be here going forward. But yeah, thanks for sticking around to the very end of this video. Like I said, I don't plan to put these things on every single video that I make. This one definitely was a much needed one because y'all deserved an update, and I wanted to give one to y'all. So yeah, thanks as always, and you guys take care of yourselves, and as I always tell you, stay golden. All right, bye y'all. See you next time.